Hi everybody, thank you for joining in. My name is Anu and I'm from APCA Mumbai. Do log on to our channel and our page in case you want to find out more about recipes, about techniques. It's a great place to be in, so do log in and learn new stuff every day. So today we are going to learn how to make a pavlova. The reason why I have named it as New Zealand Pavlova is because there's this constant debate on whether it is an Australian dessert or a New Zealand dessert, and I'll tell you the differences between the two. So pavlova is basically a meringue based dessert which is kind of layered. So you have a meringue layer and then you have a whipped cream layer, or you can have a lemon curd, and then you have a fruit layer. So it is kind of, and you can really serve it in whichever way you want. So today we'll try and show you two different ways of serving it. And while we wait for other people to kind of log in, let me give you a little bit about, the information about pavlova. So pavlova, it was named a pavlova because this Russian ballerina called Anu Pavlova had visited Australia and New Zealand in 1926, and ever since then there's this debate about whether it is from New Zealand or from Australia. So the story goes that when she was visiting, there's this chef who kind of made this dessert, and it was like a light billowy white colored dessert which kind of resembles the shoe she was wearing, and someone commented that it's as light as a pavlova, and that's how the name stuck. So while the origin is still debated, the difference between an Australian pavlova versus a New Zealand pavlova is that the Australian one is a little more crisp than the New Zealand one, which has a very marshmallowy soft center, and it is crisp on the outside. So let us see what the ingredients are for the pavlova. Can you just come in here?
They can't hear you.
Oh, there's no sound. Let us just check. Can you hear me now, guys? Okay, great. So I'm going to kind of just repeat a little bit about the pavlova in case you all did hear me last time. I'm Anu and I'm from APCA Mumbai, and do log into our page and channel to learn about various recipes and techniques. Today we are going to learn the New Zealand pavlova. And the reason why it's called a pavlova is because it was named after this Russian dancer who had visited Australia and New Zealand in 1926. And the chef who had kind of made or invented this dessert had this lovely white dessert that was kind of resembling her skirt or the tutu that she was wearing. And so someone commented that it is as light as pavlova, and that's how the name stuck. So the Australian pavlova is a little more crisp, even in the inside, whereas the New Zealand pavlova is soft, marshmallowy inside, and it has a crisp exterior. A pavlova is generally a layered dessert. It has a meringue base, and then you can have a whipped cream layer, and then you kind of top it with fruits. It's usually a summer dessert in that region, because when it's Christmas there, it's usually summer, and this is a very, very typical dessert which is served during Christmas. So let's see what the ingredients are for making a pavlova. So out here we have egg whites. So I've taken 6 egg whites. This is sugar. That's about, so the rough way to calculate sugar is about 60 grams per egg. So if you have used 6 eggs, then you use 6 into 60. So that many grams of sugar. So yes, it is a little heavy on the sugar side, but you can kind of reduce it a little. You can make it about 55 or even 50, but not less than that, because the sugar really builds up the structure. I have a little bit of lemon zest here, which is not written in the recipe, but this is totally optional. This is just for flavor. There's a little bit of vanilla essence, a pinch of salt, and some vinegar. So, is there a question?
Can we use anything else instead of sugar?
Well, sugar is really an essential part of a pavlova, but you can kind of build the structure with a little bit of vinegar, but I think sugar you can't do without. Yeah. So, all right. For the berry compote, we have so you can use frozen berries, or you can use fresh berries. What I have done out here, I have a strawberry puree and some dried berries, which I will which I've soaked in water, and I'm going to kind of make a compote with this. I have some sugar and some lemon juice. The lemon juice is again optional. It kind of gives a little bit of tanginess to the compote, and it also kind of brightens up the color. And then for the filling, we have the whipped cream out here. Now you can use a dairy based whipped cream or a non-dairy based. It's up to you.
Okay, there's a question.
Yeah.
That what can we compensate eggs for in case you want to make it eggless?
So you can use egg replacers. You can use aquafaba, which is the water coming out from beans. So you can use that as a replacement for eggs if you want it vegan. Yeah. Any other question?
Can we use something else other than berries?
Sure. In fact, we will do some of the plating with fresh fruits. So you can use a good pairing of, let's say, a kiwi and a mango, or you can just use fresh fruits like plum, peaches, any kind of a stone fruit if you don't want to use berries.
So is flaxseed an option other than eggs?
I have not tried it with flaxseed, but sure, go ahead and try it and let us know.
Okay, we can keep the questions now for a little later. We'll start.
Yes. So let's start with the egg whites. So we are going to whisk this into like a medium to stiff peak stage. So I'm just going to put it in the stand mixer. You can also use the hand mixer. Sorry about that. Yeah, so we started off with a medium speed. This is so that we get uniform bubbles. So I'm on speed 1.5 right now. I'm going to increase it slightly just to agitate the mixture. Is there a question?
Till what stage do we need to beat them?
So we need to make it into medium to stiff peak. So it has to hold on its own. let's leave it at that. It is going to take some time. Meanwhile, we will start with our berry compote. So I'm just going to add the berry puree. The dried berries. I don't want too much of the water going in. Now some people they like their berry compote tart, while some like it sweet, so it really depends on you. You can add or need not add the sugar. So I'm just going to add a little bit because it's quite tart. And this is a little bit of lemon juice that I'm going to add also. It's not audible. Can you hear me?
Can you use any berries?
Yeah. So you can use blackberries, blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, anything that is in season, or you can even use frozen. That's not an issue. So the compote is going to take about 10-15 minutes. So we'll wait till it becomes a nice and thick syrupy consistency.
So are you using granular sugar or caster sugar?
So for the compote you can use granular because in any case it's being heated, so it does not matter. And for the pavlova we will use the caster sugar or the powdered sugar because we want it to dissolve completely. So we are just kind of giving it a stir once in a while. So now that the egg whites are frothy, I'm going to start adding the sugar spoon by spoon. Now this is powdered sugar and I had sifted it, but you can still see there are, yeah. So now we are going to add it spoon by spoon because you want it to mix absolutely properly inside, otherwise the meringue is going to collapse. The pavlova is a very, very delicate dessert in the sense that any little moisture that goes in or any little extra sugar or less sugar, it's going to affect the pavlova and it can crack. Cracks are fine, but it shouldn't collapse completely. And while it is a delicate dessert, it's also a very forgiving dessert. So it does not really matter even if it has cracks, for example, because it can always be hidden under the whipped cream and the fruits. So the sugar, as I said, for every egg you kind of use about 50 to 60 grams of sugar. So here it's 180 grams of egg whites, that's about 6 eggs. So I've used 300 grams of sugar. So the end result should be a nice glossy white stiff, medium stiff kind of consistency. And we'll do a little test to make sure that all the sugar has been incorporated inside the mixture. Yeah, so this is kind of bubbling out there, which is fine.
So we have another question.
Yeah.
To make a glossy meringue, is it necessary to add a lot of sugar to the egg whites?
So the sugar gives it the stiffness. If you want your meringue to kind of stay, then you will have to add quite a bit of sugar. As I said, anywhere between 50 to 60 grams of sugar per egg is what you will use. You see it's getting nice and glossy out there. So I'm going to stop it like for a brief bit to see what's the consistency. As you can see, it's almost like it's still a soft ribbony consistency. Yeah, I'm going to beat it a little more. I'll just wipe it down the sides so that all the sugar is incorporated. So medium to stiff peaks is what we are looking at. Meanwhile, let us just have a look at our berry compote. Yeah, it's boiling nicely. And you can add a bit of cornstarch in this in case you want it thick, or you can leave it the way it is. So this is a mix of cranberries, blueberries and strawberries. So yeah, a very berry dessert. I'm going to be adding the cornstarch, the vanilla, the salt and the vinegar in some time once we get our consistency going. Just sim.
If after baking the meringue, it becomes soggy after a while, what may the problem be? How long can we store a meringue, especially in the rainy season?
Okay. So ideally, do not make a meringue in the rainy season, or if you are making it, make sure that your environment is AC. And just 1 minute, give me a minute. So I've set my oven to a preheat of 130 degrees. So you can just show that. So it's preheating at 130. Yeah. So it will be about 5 minutes till it heats up. By then, hopefully our meringue will be ready and we can kind of tray, which is kind of turned upside down, and out here you can see that I have drawn circles, right? So the meringue is going to sit in this circle. You can also have it shaped like a wreath, so you can either make 2 circles and put the meringue in this shape, a wreath shape, or you can kind of put dollops of it and kind of just spread it out, whichever way you want to. So make sure that after you draw the pencil marks, you kind of turn it over so that your meringue does not get the pencil marks. So this is where we'll kind of place our meringue. Any questions? How's the compote doing? Let's see. Yeah, that's going good. We'll also see our egg whites. Yeah, it looks like. A little more, so it has reached the medium peak, and we'll kind of we need it a little stiffer than this, so we'll kind of beat it a little more, a few more minutes, and it should be done. Never whisk the egg whites on a high speed when you're making this dessert, otherwise there are chances that it will kind of collapse. You don't want the air bubbles to be non-uniform.
So can we use Swiss meringue?
So let me tell you about the different types of meringue and then why this is used, why this is the preferred method than the others. So I'll just answer that in a minute. I just want to show you the consistency of the egg whites. So it's kind of medium stiff, yeah. So we don't want it like too stiff. Medium stiff is fine. It's nice and thick, it's nice and glossy. Can you see that? So now we will kind of start adding the...
So can we store a meringue?
Yeah, so you can make a meringue 2 days, up to 2 days before the event, and the way to store it is in an airtight container, or you can freeze it. So you can store it. To come back to the earlier question on the Swiss meringue versus the French meringue, what we are doing now. So right now, what we have done is just taken the egg whites and the sugar, and we have kind of whisked it together. In an Italian meringue, we heat up the sugar, we make a syrup, we touch a certain temperature, and then we kind of pour the sugar syrup into the egg white mixture. So what is happening is it's making the structure more stable. In a French meringue, what happens is while the structure is not too stable, it lends that little bit of softness that we want with the pavlova. We don't want it to be too stiff, and yet at the same time we don't want it to collapse. So the ratio of the sugar to the egg whites is very important, as well as the addition of the vinegar. The vanilla is added only for the flavor as well as the little bit of the color. It kind of gives it a pinkish hue, which is quite nice really. But if you don't want it, that's fine, it will be pure white. This is the cornstarch which we'll also add, and this is a pinch of sugar and the lemon zest. So let's add this one by one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold in these. I'm not going to beat it because it's been beaten enough. I'm going to fold it and then give it one last twist. So that's the cornstarch and the vanilla. I'm also going to add the vinegar and the salt. Not too much of salt, just a pinch. And a bit of the lemon zest. So give it a couple of good strong whisks. You see the color changing? That's because of the vanilla. And personally, I like it a nice pink color, but it's up to you really. It's a personal choice. Sorry, the vanilla. Did I say sugar?
No, you said pinch of.
Oh, okay. Pinch of salt. Sorry. Yeah, there's plenty of sugar, not just a pinch.
Is the ratio of the meringue 2 to 1 or 1 to 2?
So basically we are using 180 of egg whites and about 300 of sugar. So it's a little little more than 1:1 or little less than 1:2. Yeah, we are done with this. Yeah, the berry compote is kind of thickened up, and I'm just going to turn the heat off. And
So why is the vinegar used?
so the vinegar acts as a stabilizer. So basically it helps in keeping the structure, just like the sugar. So it helps in keeping the structure stronger so that it doesn't collapse.
Oh.
Yeah. So now what we are going to do is, as I said, there are two ways to kind of put this in. You can either put it in the as a wreath, or you can put it as a big dollop in the middle. And I always prefer using a metal spoon to put in the dollops, just because it makes my life easier. Just make sure when you're making the meringue, all your utensils and bowls are absolutely dry, otherwise the meringue can collapse. Get it on this side. So when you kind of put the meringue on the parchment, just make sure that the center is kind of flattened out and the edges are a little higher than the center. That's just so that the cream can be put in properly, like the cream filling. So You see that? I'm kind of flattening it out and building up the side walls. And also, again, it's a personal choice, but if you want to create these little peaks on the sides, you can, or you can smoothen it out. Again, I like the little rustic look, so I always prefer the peaks, and I'll show you how to make them. So I'm flattening it out from the center, and I just kind of run my spoon on the edges to give it that little peak. Gives it a very rough finish, but it also looks nice. Yeah, and now we will set it to bake. Yeah, so the oven is preheated at 130, and we are going to put it in and let it bake there for 1.5 hours. Meanwhile, our compote is ready, so I'm just going to empty it out, and I'm going to cool it so that it is ready for our plating. You can see it has a very jammy, shiny consistency. Alright. The next thing what we are going to do is whip up the cream. Now, as I said, you can always use the non-dairy or the dairy cream. It depends upon your choice. So this we'll beat it to medium peaks, soft medium, not too stiff.
What temperature do we bake it at?
So we are baking it at 130 for 1.5 hours. So we do a slow bake here because we don't want it kind of crisping up or getting too much of color. So it's a very slow bake process. You can see those little patterns appearing, so it's getting thicker and thicker. And always a good idea to check what the consistency is, so it's still very fluid. You see that? So it's kind of ribbon-like consistency, so we are good.
Show it again.
So how long do we bake it for?
So we bake the pavlova for 1 hour 30 minutes at 130 degrees.
Is the whipped cream with sugar or without sugar?
So it depends on what you're using. If you're using just fresh cream, then you can add sugar in it if you want to. Quite frankly, because of so much of sugar in the meringue itself as well as the compote, you need not add more sugar. But the non-dairy whips already have sugar in them, so then you can reduce in the compote. So it really depends. It's an experimentation, really. That's perfectly done, and now we are ready to kind of assemble it. So I've already baked a pavlova and kept it just because I knew that it's going to take up so much time. So I'm just going to cool this in the fridge for some time because it's too hot right now and it can't be used. Alright, so let's get this going. I have here some mango pieces and an earlier made blueberry compote. So we'll use this for our assembly. So here I have 2 meringues which I'm going to show you. So this we can do it as a plated dessert. Of course the size is a little bigger than what I had expected it to be, so never mind, there's never enough of pavlova you can really have, so we'll have a large portion. Yeah, we have just 1 minute. Some mint leaves for decoration. So we first take dollops of our whipped cream, and as I said earlier, if there are any cracks or something, you can always hide it with the whipped cream. It's a very forgiving recipe, so yeah, go ahead and try it out. Any questions? You can also, in case you don't want whipped cream, you can add a lemon curd. So that you just beat up some egg yolks with lemon juice and sugar, and kind of then whip it up with whipped cream. So that makes a lovely, lovely filling also. So I can either put it in dollops and then give it a little swirl.
Is there any other filling you can use?
Yeah, as I said just now, you can use a lemon curd if you don't want to use a whipped cream filling.
And did you add any water in the compotes?
No, you don't want to add too much water. So you can give it a kind of a swirl like this, or you can drizzle it if you want your compote to be a little more fluid. That's perfectly fine. You don't have to kind of stiffen it that much. Yeah, and
so how do we know if the pavlova is baked?
so the pavlova is baked when it is stiff from the outside. So one thing you need to be certain of is when you are putting in the pavlova inside the oven, you do not open the oven after that when it's baking. So make sure that you don't open it, otherwise it can collapse. Also, what you can do is after it bakes, just leave it in the oven till such time that it cools down. So ideally I would leave it for about 1.5 to 2 hours in the oven, so that it really cools down well and there is absolutely no chance of any moisture getting in. And then you kind of drizzle bits of the compote. Again, it doesn't have to be a very symmetrical or a pretty looking thing. It looks pretty in any case because of all the bright colors and the layers. And to give it that little pop, we kind of put some fresh mint leaves.
So can we use strawberry goose? Go.
Strawberry. Oh, I'm not sure what goose is. There you are. So you can kind of have about 6 servings of this with this quantity. And similarly we plate a dessert.
What is the texture from the meringue of the inside? Is it crispy throughout or is it soft?
No, it is very soft inside. It's marshmallowy texture inside, and we are going to cut one and show you. So I'm going to quickly, I'm just going to assemble this slightly different. So here I'm kind of heaping up all the compote in the middle, unlike what we did the swirls for the big dessert, and now for the little one we are going to just heap it up in the middle. And you can add a lot of fresh fruits, like I told you earlier. You can have kiwi and mango combination, you can have peaches, plums, really whatever you want.
Somebody asked a question, why do you bake in low temperature?
So basically if you bake it at too high a temperature, what will happen is that it will expand too quickly, and then when you take it out it's just going to collapse. So that's one reason. And the second reason is you don't want too much of browning. you want the pavlova to have a very light pink texture. Can you see the color out there? It's a very light pink color compared to the white here. So you don't want it to be like super dark in texture. There you are. And we'll just do a quick cutting of the pavlova. Just to show you the texture from inside. You see how it's cracking? That means it's really crisp on the outer.
What if the meringue comes crispy throughout? What is wrong with the...
Nothing is wrong. You've just made an Australian pavlova. That's it. Enjoy it. You see that? If you can just show the camera. So it is kind of soft inside and it has a crisp outer. Quite soft inside. And you can see the textures here too. You see that? So this is soft while this is... And I'm just going to have a little taste of it just to tell you how it is. Yeah, pretty good. All the fruity textures and the tartness of the compote, the sweetness of the meringue and the fresh fruit. It's really a lovely dessert. So thank you very much for tuning in and I hope you liked it. Do let me know if you have any further questions and we'll be happy to answer it. You can focus back on the dessert.